In a land where the chains of slavery clung tight to skin and soul, the children of Israel cried out, their voices rising from sun-scorched fields and bloodied hands. For 400 years the land of Egypt held them captive, and for 400 years God had been silent, or so it seemed. But when man believes heaven has gone quiet, it is only because God is preparing a storm. His name was Moses. A child born under the threat of death, placed upon the waters of the Nile in a basket of reeds, carried by destiny's current into the house of Pharaoh himself, raised as a prince, yet carrying within him the blood of the oppressed. For years he lived between two worlds, belonging to neither. Until one fateful day when injustice and rage overcame him, and he struck down an Egyptian taskmaster. Fearing Pharaoh's wrath, Moses fled into the wilderness, into the land of Midian, a fugitive, a shepherd, a forgotten prince. But God had not forgotten. On a lonely mountain called Horeb, heaven spoke through fire. And there, in the glow of holy flame, God set a broken man ablaze with purpose. And so began the war between heaven and Egypt. Plagues swept through the land like a dark tide. The Nile turned to blood. Frogs invaded royal chambers. Flies, boils, hail, locusts, each strike a blow against the gods of Egypt. And at last, on a night where death walked unseen through the streets of every household, the final plague struck. The firstborn of Egypt fell, and Pharaoh's hardened heart, cracked by grief, relented. And so, under a blood-red dawn, the children of Israel marched, a nation of slaves no more. The sound of sandals on sand, the bleating of sheep, the lifting of weary faces toward freedom. But Egypt's fury would not be quelled for long. Pharaoh's armies thundered after them, chariots gleaming like polished teeth. The people trapped between sword and sea trembled in terror. And then, Moses, his staff raised high, stands before the roaring waters of the Red Sea. He strikes the water, and heaven parts the sea like a curtain. Walls of water tower on either side, and the people walk through upon dry ground. As dawn broke, the sea swallowed Pharaoh's army, the horse and its rider cast into the deep. A people once shackled in chains now stood on the other side of deliverance. But freedom was only the beginning. For 40 years they wandered, a wilderness of burning sands and silent nights. A generation that had known only chains would learn to follow cloud by day and fire by night. At Sinai, the mountains shook with the voice of God, and laws were written in stone by the very finger of the Almighty. But hearts of stone would be harder to break. The people grumbled. They built idols of gold. They longed for the flesh pots of Egypt over the manna from heaven. And through every rebellion, Moses pleaded for them, a leader burdened, weary, and yet unwavering. Yet not even Moses was without flaw. In a moment of anger, he struck a rock to bring forth water, when God had asked him only to speak. For this, the man who led them from Egypt would not cross the Jordan. He would never step foot in the promised land. From a mountain's peak, God showed Moses the land flowing with milk and honey, a reward for a people not yet ready to receive it. And there upon Mount Nebo, the servant of God breathed his last. Buried by the hand of the Lord, no grave marked, no tombstone inscribed. But his legacy lives, a deliverer, a prophet, a man who spoke with God as one speaks with a friend, and through him a nation was born. After Moses, the mantle passed to Joshua, a warrior forged in the fires of wilderness and war. Under Joshua's command, the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, whose waters parted just as the Red Sea once did. And before them lay Jericho, a fortress city whose walls stretched high into the heavens, but no stone wall could stand against the will of God. At the blast of ram's horns and the unified shout of God's people, the walls of Jericho crumbled like dust. And so, step by step, battle by battle, the land promised to Abraham was claimed, the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, a home for the children of Israel. And the stories of Moses, of Joshua, and of the God who split seas and toppled kingdoms would be told from generation to generation, a testimony of deliverance. A reminder that no matter how dark the night, how heavy the chains, or how fierce the enemy, heaven hears. And when the time comes, heaven moves. For the God of Israel is not a God of the dead past, but of the living present. And though Moses was buried in the wilderness, his faith marches on. It marches on in those who choose to believe when the way seems shut, in those who stand at the shores of their own Red Seas, in those who wander deserts of discouragement but still follow the cloud and fire. The God who delivered then delivers now, and the story of Moses is not finished, because the same God still writes stories in the hearts of those who dare to trust him.